Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I'm Shraddha Jha, Deputy Director Programs from Transform Schools People for Action.
Hi everyone, I am Neetu Sahu and I head the Quality Assurance and Impact at Transform Schools. We work for improving the learning outcomes of secondary students in India.
Let me add to that introduction. Neetu is literally the silent hero of our organization. She's the one who ensures we know what we are doing, we do it the right way, and she also ensures to keep us on track to make that impact. Before we start, I also want to thank CLEAR and JPAL South Asia for giving us this opportunity. Let me brief you on the format of the webinar. We will be telling you a story of a program very closely working with measuring, monitoring, and providing effective feedback to the students, to teachers, and the systems at large. We will also be telling you how participatory monitoring in systems can impact better learning outcomes at scale. And we'll also be sharing the challenges we have faced, but which has made our journey really exciting. We encourage you to post your questions on the Q&A box while we speak. We have a colleague, Manmeet Kaur, Head of Equity and Gender Programs at Transform Schools, who will be facilitating the Q&A session. We would be, at the end of the presentation, we would have 30 minutes to respond to your queries. I'm glad to share that our Executive Director, Pankaj, would also be joining in to respond to your questions. So this is the story of a school where we started our work with in 2015. Teachers were struggling and did not have the ability, means, or tools to make an impact on student learning outcomes. They did not know where the students were with respect to the grade level competencies. And they also did not have the insights to target their efforts. Teachers were and expected to teach class 9 content, achieve good results, and also better the performance in class 10 board exams. While students were struggling with their accumulated learning gaps and were unable to cope with the class content. In addition to not knowing the student level, problem at the student level, the teachers were also uninspiring and did not engage with the students. This is one picture which is quite evident. These are the pictures from the schools that we used to work with when we started in 2015. It is this one classroom that stacks up and reflects the state level performance. And if teachers cannot ensure that students learn, they gain confidence, it is not possible to impact the outcomes at scale. So it's then when we decided to bring this change through our Transform Learning program. Transform Learning program is an effective competency-based teaching learning model that addresses the accumulated gaps and builds the grade level competencies. A critical element of this program is the monitoring, evaluation, and learning systems to continuously and consistently measure the learning outcomes. Now let us see and understand the Transform Learning program architecture. Transform Learning constitutes 3 phases of classroom teaching over 69 days with 50 hours per subject. The first phase, the foundation phase, focuses on foundational competencies. During supported learning phase, students are enabled to build their skills and apply concepts. And lastly, in the consolidation camp phase, Efforts are made to prepare students for the exams. Before the foundation phase, a baseline assessment is conducted, and at the end of the program, the end-line assessment is conducted. In each of these activities are conducted in a very participatory manner. We will be talking about that more in detail in the later slides. At the heart of this growth story is a simple idea. What you measure affects what you do. In order to teach effectively, teachers need to know the existing learning levels of the students, which a single grade assessment cannot indicate. We tested our assessment model in the 50 schools. But how was that different from the other assessments, like the state level assessments, which tested grade level competencies, or ASAR assessments, which measures the students on foundational competencies, or National Achievement Survey? The uniqueness of our assessment is that it allows teachers to pinpoint and identify the gaps and categorize the students into 4 buckets or levels. These are inception level, class 3, class 5 level, and class 8 level, as you can see here. Also, our assessment is developed, administered, evaluated, and monitored by the state. That is, it is completely owned by the state using our approach. A quick look of the data from Odisha reveals that a very small proportion of the students were at grade level, the class 8 level. This is how all state dashboards appeared when we started our program in the states. But then our assessment methodology signaled a shift from branding students as slow learners to categorizing them at their actual learning levels and applying effective teaching practices to enable students achieve their class appropriate learning. Our initial work with the students on the grade level outcomes in secondary schools did not see much traction. But then, using simple assessments, we negotiated a space with the state government to pilot a new learning program, and we partnered with 50 secondary schools in the 2 districts in India. The aim was to improve the quality of instructions to improve the quality of outcomes using proven teaching learning methods. Transform uses outcome-focused, peer learning, and effective classroom management techniques. The focus is on experiential and participatory learning and very strong assessment and feedback to ensure improvements in learning levels over the 3 phases. In today's world, we are constantly measuring and grading the performance, from Ola rides to the movies we watch or to food we eat. Most of us wear fitness bands to measure, count our steps, and improve. That's exactly what we did. We measured the baseline performance, supported the students, and then measured the change again. This slide presents a snapshot of a state and shows how the proportion of students moved or shifted from inception level to class 8 level. We understood the importance of measurement and that it was not like a supporting actor in the movies. It was, in fact, taking our movie or driving our journey forward. Our competency-based assessments and teaching methods led to positive data indicated by our program results. But beyond these numbers were there multitude of stories that were powering us. And one such story, in fact, our first success story is that of Roshni. Roshni was scared of exams. Her peers and teachers assumed that she would drop out, precisely because of her exceptionally low learning levels, which emerged from her inability to read, write, and understand Hindi, the local language, which hindered her growth and performance in other subjects. Then Roshni participated in our Transform Learning program. She enjoyed participating in our program, and at the end of the program in N-line assessments, she did remarkably well. Interestingly, we followed her journey onto next year, and we saw from the verge of being dropout in class 9, she secured first division in class 10 board exams. We were like a proud parent. We knew we were making the dent. Another proud moment for us was when our processes and participatory monitoring approach was vetted by the principal investigators of London School of Economics. Our theory of change and results were also validated by them. This added to the credibility of our program, and it was like a blockbuster moment for us. What gave us more confidence was the endorsement from the government that our program had the right ingredients, was making an impact, and was fit for purpose for statewide implementation. This propelled us to take the program to other states. That's when we adopted a new avatar, from directly piloting in 50 schools to supporting state governments to scale up the Transform Learning program in their states. We urged our state partners to implement this program, knowing very well that if we want to make an impact at the ecosystem level, we have to transform the lives of millions of children and work with them. Not now, how did we engender a measuring, monitoring, learning, and responding while we move from 50 schools to 98,000 schools? Let us hear from Neetu.
Thank you, Shraddha, for sharing the first leg of our journey across 50 secondary schools. So to make our approach fit for use at scale, we built upon the existing system further. And these are the 5 guiding principles of our participatory monitoring and evaluation system that we use today to measure the learning outcomes of millions of students in India. So what are the uniqueness of our system? First, it engages program stakeholders. This, in turn, strengthens their ownership and reliability. Second, it provides the opportunity to receive useful feedback from the stakeholders. And this leads to data-driven actions and decisions finally. And all these joint efforts makes the system cost-effective, scalable, and sustainable. So now let's look in detail what are the key steps that goes in our participatory monitoring and evaluation system. So the blue boxes that you see here on this slide, these are the new functionalities that we built upon on the existing approach that we had used across the 50 schools. So at the initial step, we finalized the monitoring visit plan in consultation with the state government officials. This plan outlines what is to be monitored, how, and by whom. Once the plan is finalized, the program and the monitoring team, they develop the tools to track the indicators. And these indicators are directly linked with the quality and efficacy of the program. These are all structured tools developed based state-specific customizations, and we use open source tools, mostly Google Form, to develop these tools. Now that the plan is there, the tools are there, we impart training to the stakeholders based on their roles and responsibilities to equip them on the tools and use them to record their observations during the field visits across the phases of the program. We also build the capacities of the state MIS cell on using these open source resources for data analysis and generating dashboards. So now that the stakeholders are capacitated and ready to dive in the field and get deeply involved in the data collection process. And this takes us to the next steps of gathering data from the field, which leads to actionable insights. So the first set of data that we gather from the field is the student assessment scores. And these student assessments are administered at the school level by the trained teachers under the supervision of the head teachers. Now, since the teachers are deeply involved in this assessment and scoring process, they get to know the learning levels of the students. And based on this information, they make the adjustments in their classroom transactions. While these assessments are carried out at the school level, the district master trainers and the government monitoring officials, they visit the school to assess the quality of these assessments and the quality of classroom teaching that happens post these assessments, to seek feedback from the stakeholders and record their observations. These observations, they then upload using the structured online tools so that we have access to real-time data. We then review the aggregated data sets and run the analysis to generate dashboards on the program progress and quality, highlighting areas that work well and areas that need attention. So what do we do with these dashboards then? These are then shared with the state officials during the program quarterly review meetings to inform appropriate actions to be taken at each level based on these findings. So while the data dashboards help us generate evidence and seek action from the state, we at our end also proactively participate in that action and provide additional support and guidance to the teachers to reinforce focus on specific areas to improve the effectiveness of program delivery. And I would like to share with you one such example. So after we had just concluded a teacher training in one of our partner states, there was a teacher transfer drive that took place. And as a result of this, several of our trained teachers, they moved out of the intervention district. The moment this was identified, we recollected the data from the schools to check the availability of trained teachers at the school level. And what we realized that the number of trained teachers at hand were not sufficient to get quality in the program. So we responded quickly and recorded explainer and orientation videos and put out a blended training plan that the state ensured that each teacher delivering the program participated in the trainings and learned from by watching the videos. They also sent out specific messages to reinforce the learning and guided the teachers through a video that I myself recorded and narrated to ensure that the schools, the head teachers, they were able to upload the data timely. So this is the kind of nimbleness and focused action which is driven by high quality data that teachers, head teachers, and administrators believe in and can use for better program management. So moving on, let us see how this data is used by each of the actors in a purposeful way, deepening their understanding and giving them a new action plan. So these are the key actors, program actors of the program. The student, they get the evaluated assessment papers, and that assessment paper helps each student to know the current performance, their strengths, and their weaknesses. Along with this performance report, the teacher also provides them feedback And this empowers the student to self-assess and plan the topics and areas to focus on in order to improve the performance further. At the classroom, it's the teacher who manages the teaching and learning process. So the aggregated baseline data on student learning levels guides the teacher to identify the competencies that she needs to focus on. And in addition to that, it also helps the teacher to identify the areas that they could improve their pedagogy or the classroom management and seek inputs leveraging peer network that we help to build upon. At the school head, it's the head teacher who assesses the school's overall performance. The school report card, the data on student participation, or the data on classroom practices, all these data empowers the head teacher to prioritize their focus area for overall school development. They also see the additional support they need to seek, whether they need to mobilize parental support if needed and provide academic leadership to the teachers. And at the administrative level, the district officials, they refer to the dashboards that are segregated by district, block, school, and they look for the districts or the areas that have not performed well. And try, for example, they look for subjects in which the students have poor performed, and they try to link it with teacher competencies and put it in the teacher training programs so that the teachers' capacities are built. And this leads to improve the overall performance of the district. So therefore, all of these actors, we see that they measure the performance using our monitoring data. They reflect on it, and based on that, they take requisite actions. This joint effort by all the stakeholders helped us achieve the desired results. Next slide, please. And it gives me immense pleasure here to share this slide where it shows that the results measured by our participatory monitoring approach are reflected across the evaluation results. So the three areas that I would like to share here, where a sync was seen between the two reports, are the learning gains. By learning gain, we mean an increase in score of a student from baseline to end line. And we saw that a significant number of students improved their scores from baseline to end line. The next set of indicators that we track is a bucket jump. By bucket jump, we mean a student who improves their learning from, they transition to the next or higher learning levels. That is, either they moved from class 3 level to a class 5 level, or a class 5 level to a class 8 level. And one of our states showed that 50% of students had transitioned to the next level. And the third very interesting area is the performance of students in language compared to math, where we saw there was a marginal difference in the performance. So we believe that the active engagement and concerted efforts of stakeholders at different levels, their motivation, the timely feedback, and the data-driven actions, decisions, all of these empowers the stakeholder, the program stakeholders, to improve their teaching and learning process at the school level. And this is the key to improve learning outcomes. So while all of these looks good and makes us feel proud, there are a wide spectrum of challenges that we are facing and additional areas that we need to deep dive to expand our learning. Shraddha will now discuss some of those challenges.
Thanks, Neetu. So we hope that we have not led you all to believe that it has been very easy for us. While we ensure that our students learn well, we are learning too. Alongside the remarkable results and the impact stories that you have heard about, there have been challenges too, but those that continuously pushes us to innovate and do better. At a rudimentary level, the challenges pertain to data quality, insufficient data reporting, or delay in reporting. In one of the states, baseline data of only 50% of the students were uploaded and reported even after 2 months of the assessment. By now, we all know how important the data is, and its timely analysis and rendering are also equally important. Not having the data limits our ability to understand the performance of the schools, districts, and state, provide them inputs, and track progress made by the students. Another hurdle that we often encounter is the constant tension between the syllabus completion and our programs. Paucity of resources at the state level compounds this problem, which affects targeting or forcing states to prioritize some subjects, like it was done in one of our partner states, that prioritize the poor performing subjects, mathematics and science. We all know that language comprehension does affect the performance in other subjects, in this case, mathematics and science, but there are decision-making challenges at the state level too. However, we are hopeful that our monitoring, evaluation, and learning processes will help states make nuanced decisions in the future. We are an ambitious organization, and we constantly want to get better. So another challenge or aspirations that we want to establish linkages between the learning gains, board exams results, NAS results, as well as economic impact. We're excited about these challenges as these are aligned with our mission, which is to improve the learning outcomes and enable students access better education and career opportunities. This is a continuous learning process for us as well. So we are exploring new partnerships, deepening the existing ones to enrich our journey, which has huge potential. But as we move on, we hit roadblocks, we fail, but we learn and we continue to support states to effectively deliver the programs. And what makes our collaboration as colleagues working on program and quality and trying to improve student learning outcomes fulfilling is a student like Gaurav. Gaurav found our program very interactive and fun. He shared his experience of how learning concepts from previous classes helped him understand the concepts of current grade. Interestingly, we find it very difficult to convince the teachers and the government officials that remedial learning and grade level learning are not disparate processes, but have a symbiotic relationship. Voices like Gaurav and stories of children improving, gaining confidence, expressing well, makes our journey fulfilling and are fueling us continuously. We are confident of making much bigger dent and creating a learning revolution at scale in the secondary space, because we have promises to keep and miles to go before we sleep. Thank you all. We hope you all enjoyed the story of our journey of monitoring and evaluation processes. Thanks for your patient listening. We are happy to respond to your questions now. Manmeet will be pulling the questions together and sharing with us.
Thank you so much, Neetu and Shraddha. I really hope that you enjoyed doing this as much as we enjoyed attending this. We've had a very engaged audience and questions have been coming and going, and Pankaj has been answering a lot of them simultaneously. There are some questions that are yet to be answered. So I'll start with the first one. The first one says, is your M&E process amenable to end-to-end digitization? If yes, why isn't it online yet?
So to respond to that question, Well, yes, it is amenable, but we also look into the feasibility given the area that we work in. Most of the schools that we work are government schools located in rural areas. So we feel that maybe there is a digital divide. The students, they may not have the skills to use the digital devices, or there could be a possibility that they don't have access to digital devices. And even if they have access, they could be, they may not have, they may have limited access to internet. So all of these are some of the reasons we feel that we should first assess what is the actual situation of the field where we are working, and then we start uh, transforming our assessments online. And for that, we moving forward, we are in the process of collaborating with our tech partners for digitizing all our resources, content, and then also the assessments using open source platforms. So because our assessments, it is not, all are not MCQs, it also covers some subjective questions. So there is a possibility that the students may have difficulty to answer that if it all goes online. So first we want to enhance the skills and then take this online. I hope did I answer the question?
I hope so. And I'll let you know if there's a follow up to that.
Yeah.
Parul has asked that it's really nice that the measures seem very basic and exactly what's needed. But what is it that's helping it sustain in large government systems? Or if these are so basic, why is the government not able to do it itself?
So, where is the question? Can I see the question?
It's in the chat box. I can drop it again if you'd
Yeah.
like. Sure.
So that I don't miss out on any.
Of course.
element.
I've just sent it. Can you see each other?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, in large government systems, it's very important to have that buy-in from the state leadership. And that's exactly what we do. The first step that we follow is to share the plan and get the leadership, the approval from the state leadership, so that it can be scaled up in all districts and in all schools of the state. And there is buy-in at the teacher level, because we do face resistance or challenge. As I mentioned, there is a constant tension between the syllabus and the need for this program. So once we have the approvals at the leadership level, it really helps to have that scale and ensure that it's implemented in all the schools. Also, what will be sustainable, and what we are actually thinking to start this early, because at class 9 the gaps accumulate, and if we start early, we are able to help students early, and they get better in understanding the concepts at an early age. So that also helps to sustain the programs in the government school system.
Great. Thank you, Shraddha. I've clubbed together some questions so that it's easier for us to manage time as well. So a lot of the questions which translate to this would be, how do you ensure systemic change from what looks like a standalone intervention?
So again, Manmeet, so referring to the answer that a question I responded to, in order to get this systemic, ensure the systemic change happens, it's very important to get the buy-in from the state leadership. So we have an MOU at the state level, and that helps us, or smoothens the process, implementation process at all levels. It also helps us to involve all stakeholders from the government system, so that the program is sustainable. So whether be it teachers who actually deliver the program in the schools. So it's not a parallel program where we create other set of resources delivering the program. So the school teachers deliver these lessons. The head teachers are also oriented and on their role as an academic leader, there are other government officials and mentors who also understand their role, that they have to monitor as well as mentor the teachers to effectively deliver these programs. So all of this together ensures that that systemic change happens.
Great. There's another interesting question which says, how do you ensure data privacy is maintained?
So should I answer that?
Yeah, Neetu, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, data privacy is very important for us. And for that, actually, before going in the fields to collect the data, we have the MOU from the state, and so that the data can be collected smoothly. And this data that we collect from this field is not shared with any external party. And at the operational level, while when, for example, the one of the data sets we collect is the student scores, which is student by student. So, but when we generate the analysis and share it with a larger group, it is the aggregated data that we share. And the student by student is shared only with the student for whom that score is related to. And if for any reason, if for any decision making, it happens that we have to share the student data, then we have a very unique nomenclature to allot the student ID to each student. So the data, the confidentiality remains over there. And the other areas, we have the evaluations that we do. So the research organizations that we partner with, they also strictly adhere to the privacy clause. And the tools, that is also one area where we ensure that the data is secured and the privacy is maintained. So the tools that we use to, the platforms that we use to develop the online tools, so all those have the data security features. Wherever the data is stored, they ask for a user account, and then you have the access to the data. So I think all these steps that we ensure, this helps us to maintain the data privacy.
That sounds like an extremely important approach, Neetu. Thanks for that. There's another question which says, is your approach not band-aid, and should you not focus on teacher effectiveness instead?
So it is not really a band-aid approach. I mean, that's how I would like to start with. So we urge the program is delivered by the state teachers. So we really focus on improving the teacher effectiveness. That's the focus, because that will eventually translate into better learning outcomes. So the teacher is the main lever in this program, and their effectiveness is ensured by the resources that we provide. So like, we have teacher handbook, which really helps the teachers to deliver the program. We have very high quality trainings, in-person trainings, as well as, online trainings, which ensure that the teachers are oriented on the pedagogy, effective classroom practices. Also, looking at the monitoring data, we constantly infer what are the gaps, and we support them with the explainer videos or guidance messages, again on the best teaching practices. Another area that we help teachers improve through is we help them build the peer network, wherein community of good practices can be established and they learn from each other. So we really focus on improving the teacher quality. And I did mention earlier that the head teacher and the other government officials are also oriented on their role as academic leader and mentor, which provides like an in-person support to the teachers on ground. So teacher effectiveness is really core of this program. But we do also have another separate offering with Transform Teaching, which works very intensively with the teachers. And we are actually thinking of blending the two programs, wherein the two programs interact with each other, leveraging technology. And we are also urging states to, integrate the remedial teaching, as they say so, in regular teaching, so that the teachers, basically internalize this approach and improve their performance or in delivering the classroom sessions.
Great. Thanks, Shraddha. I think there's one question that follows very beautifully from the discussion that we just had. It's that how is it that teachers are responding to the program? And also another part of that question asked by another person is that how are they responding to it and how is it changing their performance if their participation is impacting it at all?
So could you repeat that, Manvi?
Yeah, so there are two parts to this question. How are teachers responding to the intervention and how is their performance changing by participating in the intervention? Are they able to observe any changes? Have there been any responses to that effect?
Yeah. So I think the first part can be taken by Shraddha and I can take the second part.
Yeah. So yes, as we said, it's not a easy ride for us. So, and we face these this resistance from the teachers, especially when we are there in the trainings, because they feel that they are being overburdened, or they are really struggling to finish the syllabus, so they do not see value in it. So these kinds of the resistance we do face, but helping getting the acceptance at the state leadership level really helps us in getting the buy-in even from the teachers. And as soon as they see the baseline results, and they do realize that the students are really lacking on foundational competencies, and when they start delivering the lessons using our resources and our approach, they see the change in the students. So we do get these we have anecdotes wherein teachers do share that the students who have become vocal, are participating more in the classrooms, and when they see this real change with the children, they don't need any more convincing. So they are on this side of the table along with us.
Yeah, just to add to that, the facts that we have, the baseline and the end line, when we compare the data, so our monitoring data shows that there has been remarkable improvement in performance of students from baseline to end line. For example, I mean, when we see average percentage of students who are at grade in baseline, it ranges from 5 to 10% in the subjects like science, maths, and English, with a little better in the local language, which is either Hindi or Odia in one of the states that we work in. And after the students, they participate in our program, during the end line, what we saw that there was an improvement by approx, it was 15 percentage points to 25 percentage points in science, maths, and English. And the local language, Hindi or Odia, it went up by, I think it was around 50%. So we can see the data also shows that there is a remarkable improvement.
So just to add to that, so we do not assess the teachers in this program, Transform Learning program, but the improved teaching practices actually gets translated into better student results, which Neetu shared. That's how we infer that it's also making an impact at the teacher level.
Great. There was another question about what kind of tools and interventions we're using from Sujata. I think you've partially answered that. So we will move on to this question that says, how do you ensure data quality and the quality of the program implementation, especially at scale? And how has your QA process adapted to scale, where tendencies to misrepresent data and to lie are quite high?
Neetu is the master of that. So.
Okay, I'll take that question. So yes, I mean, yeah, data quality, I mean, as while I was discussing, we were discussing our slides, this is one of our key principles of this approach. So we do not compromise on data quality. And for example, when it comes to like the evaluations, though we rely on the the teacher capacities who are actually evaluating the assessment papers, but we also, to ensure that the data is scored by the teachers correctly, we do a sample validation of those assessments, and this is done at 3 levels. The first level that it gets done is at the school level by the head teachers. They sample review a few of the assessment papers, and then the monitoring officials during their visit to the field, they are also mandated to cross check a few papers and see if the teachers are checking the papers correctly or not, whether the summation that they have to do, when they add up the scores, are there errors there, or are there errors in they've marked the child had marked correctly, or and the student has the teacher has not given correct marks. So all those things we take care of, and at our level we also validate a few of those questions, because to actually to answer evaluate these assessment papers, there is a grading rubric which is referred while evaluating the assessment papers. So this is one of the measures that we take to ensure data quality. Second, I would say that with regard to the quality of program delivery that happens at the school level. So robust monitoring is done by senior state government officials, the district officials, and these are all done on a random basis. So all the stakeholders who are delivering the program at the school level, they do it properly, because a random visit can be done anytime.
Great. There's a last question. Yeah, sure, Shraddha, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just, because, it doesn't end at just collecting data, but, we use that data, do the analysis, and we continuously share it with the state leadership. So we have quarterly meetings, and all of that, based on those findings or insights that we share with the state, they, if required, they share, further instructions or orders. So that also helps to, ensure that the quality remains intact.
Great. So just to close the loop and also sort of close the circle a little bit, Sachin has requested if we could repeat the theory of change. If it's possible to share the screen again or to read it out, whatever's most comfortable given the technology. It'll be great to hear you say the theory of change again. And Sachin, we're happy to share it with you separately if you'd also like that.
So the theory of change of the Transform Learning program is that we work on teacher effectiveness using effective assessment teaching learning model to address the accumulated gaps that students have and ensure that they achieve the grade level competencies.
Great. I think that's a great conclusion to the webinar. I'm afraid we do not have time for any more questions, even though the audience has been really very engaging. So I'll pass the buck again to Shraddha, Neetu, and Pankaj and see how we can close.
Well, thank you so much. We had pretty massive participation for this first webinar. And I really want to congratulate my two young colleagues who were able to deliver this and deliver the program, and it's pretty strong monitoring quality assurance framework. I also want to invite all of you for a forthcoming webinar, which will be set up in collaboration with JPOL. This program was independently evaluated by JPOL South Asia with principal investigators from several reputed universities. And that randomized control evaluation results will be available to share, and you can learn more about the impact of this program using the most rigorous methodology possible. We're also very confident of taking this program to multiple states because we can see that not only this program is effective, but is adaptable, and we can take this to multiple locations, improving it further. The point that I saw in several questions was that if states could do this, why would they not do this on their own? But the fact is that our state government partners are really willing. They put their money where their mouth is. They work very closely with us to deliver a very high quality program. And for many, many years, I believed that teachers are the key. And I think teachers and very strong administrators, state project directors, education secretaries from the 4 partner states of Odisha, Haryana, Chhattisgarh, and Himachal really are leading the way. So please, I think that change is possible and no child must be left behind. That's what we believe in, and we invite you to participate, in this with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pankaj. Neetu, yeah.
So thanks everyone. And once again, we would like to thank CLEAR and the J-POL South Asia team for giving us this opportunity to share our learnings, our experiences with regard to the participatory monitoring system during this G-Local Evaluation Week. And we thank all the participants today who attended this event with us. And we will be sending you a feedback form and would love to hear your thoughts on the event. Thank you so much.